was that we were so over, but now we are so back. I should probably not be using remote desktop simultaneously. That might also be impacting my connection. That. Eh? Huh. Maybe it's got pulled up, didn't it? I mean, I'm pretty sure you're the... No, it was probably Joe that won in most of this footage. I'm messing around and looking stiff. Getting things working. Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. It might just be that it can't handle the video. Does the stream output look super choppy? Yeah, might have just been it connecting. Seems like it's doing fine now. I'm picking up a ton of background noise, and I don't like that. Let's try there, and... It's like it's every time I stop talking, there's a thump sound. Oh god, it's picking up my chair. That's super not right. Let's try lowering the sensitivity. I mean, currently it's just me. I'm replaying footage that I captured automatically. Yeah, it's got our overlay on it and everything. There's definitely something wrong with it right though. It is not smooth at all. Oh, is it because I saw the remote desktop connection enabled? No, actually, it's happening on the screen. It's not what our footage looks like good. It's like a me problem. Well, the idea was that I'd watch a Metroid documentary, but until Sayla gets over here, I'm messing around with this. Okay. It's gone forever. Got snapped. For my next trick. Computer, stop acting like you don't have VLC installed. I literally just had it open. There it is. I take this, and then I take the playlist file that I made, drop it in there. Getting so much background noise. This just looks wrong. What I did to this. Seriously, what is going on? Footage. Uh, it's all red and blue. I'm not showing it for the sake of our viewers' eyes. But it's there. It is Anaglyph 3D. Why did I have that turned on? There we go. But yeah, no, the actual footage looks sputter smooth. There is a way to pop out video. Let's see. There it is. Set as wallpaper. Now I should be able to add video capture. DLC. Oh, that's funny looking. That's not working. There we go. That'll be really loud again. I wish I could control audio by group. Maybe I can some. Oh, actually, this is not outputting sound. Is that what I want? No, that sounds boring. That's way too loud. Okay. Ba, ba, da, ba, ba. I miss when it was easy to change the volume of different volumes. Now, why am I hearing it from... That is way smoother. I don't know why that's smoother. I would really have thought OBS's installation of VLC would be more effective. There we go. That's killed all sound. I want the sound to play, I just don't want to have to hear it. Well, I do want to hear it, but not while I'm messing with it. Oh, well, I trust that it's working. Oh my god. So say, look, this video quality is awful, but it's working. Hey there, Kirby Kittens. Thanks for the follow. My alerts still don't make any sound to me. At all. Is that because I muted? Yes. Actually, come to think of it, I think I know who that is. Hey.
Pug online puggers.
And there she is.
Wanna guess who I am?
Is it the one who made the lovely fan art for us last week?
Yee. Yeps.
Knew it. I knew it all the time. Okay, so when you joined the channel, when you followed, there was no sound that output. I'm now going to play. Wait. I know what it is. But that means I can't use my alerts and clean my audio with OBS at the same time. Frustrating. Frustrating. Kirby, that means that some of the gameplay that's currently on stream here is yours. Yeah, see, so I can play that event and it
Yep,
makes
top
a
right
sound,
corner.
but I cannot hear it because it is currently going out to my feed. Because my little PNG tuber here is the one hearing it. I'm going to mute my mic and replay an alert, and you're going to see his mouth move. Well, now I'm just confused. And don't know what's going on anymore. They're both outputting.
XD.
Because this is, in fact, listening to the output cable, I thought. Did it stop? Did it stop listening to the output cable? Testing 1, 2, 3.
Cat.
No, it's just not outputting to the cable. This is all very entertaining. Everything's fine. Nothing unfortunate happened. But I don't understand why. Because I lowered their volume. Now he hears them. Well, crap. I don't know how to make it so that one of my outputs goes to him and one of the outputs goes to me. Because in OBS, you're allowed to set up one monitor cable and that's it. Because I do not want to be listening to myself at all times. It's a future James problem. Anyway, outside of that, it looks like the footage is streaming pretty well. The bitrate's kind of meh, but outside of that, I think it looks pretty good. We don't have any big frame drops or nothing. Now, let's take this a step further, perhaps. And there we go.
F.
This is going to be the weirdest thing I've ever done by far. I hit this button, and that should activate that device. Maybe it starts that. Probably not. Is this hectic enough? That's not right. Invalid output resolution selected. That means it's plugged into the wrong port. Which means that me trying to put it into the right port was wrong.
Oh.
Now. Sayla, I don't know if you've met Kirby. No signal. No signal means I need to hit this button. And then everything just works. And I never have to think again about anything. Oh my god. And then this button. And then this button.
Hearts.
There's no good way to make this. There we go. And now. There. I've taken away the footage. And now for something completely different. Something which will shock and amaze everybody but me. I've done it. This is, in fact, me. I am the one piloting this right now. I'm going to click on Donkey Kong to prove it. However, you will all notice there is no sound. And that's the rub here. But yeah, Dale, I don't know if you're watching the stream, but we got my entertainment setup is now linked to my ability to stream. Now, what does that actually mean? That means anything that I can play on my television, I can play on the stream. As long as it has a wireless controller. Ooh. From where I have everything else set up. But currently without sound. And I have some ideas on how to fix that, but I think that unfortunately it's due to the server I'm using. Still, would be cool to show off my Dark Souls 3 character, etc. It's on my expo. Maybe just to hang out and skate. So I can just use the mushroom here. Y'all are cheaters. So is this a shortcut? Oh, I see. It is and it is not. It's a shortcut from the right angle. I don't think triple mushrooms are what's gonna get us back into first place there. Oh well. Alright. Yeah. It works. With the obvious exception of no sound. But that's a me problem. Sailor, how does this look?
Right.
Listen, the idea is that I can collect gameplay footage from in there without having to do anything with my primary computer here, and that it will just collect the gameplay footage when we play the game. Now, where the sound has gone, I honestly could not tell you, because when I was using this capture card with my primary machine, the sound worked fine, no issue. Probably just get a second Switch to use for streaming. This one's. You gotta admit, he's got some snazzy sunnies.
An issue for Google.
An issue for Microsoft. Oh, it picked up all of my controller movements. I hate that. Okay. Anyway, looks like we're here. So that's what I've been messing with lately. We're going to be watching a documentary on Super Metro. Since an upcoming video will be. Why is my mic picking up F? Okay. Where's the link? Did I? Yeah, there it is. Media YouTube.
Daughter is being treated for leukemia. It hit me hard. It did.
Need to block it.
Being a girl dad, it really just melted my heart.
It changes everything.
You just... you
Absolutely nothing about the game I would change. It is a masterpiece. It's one of the most genre-defining games that has ever been created, inventing the action exploration genre and influencing untold game developers and designers to this very day, earning its spot as a pinnacle of what a game can be. But how did it come about? How did it get this way? Join me in my history of Super Metroid as I delve into the making of this classic, from conception to completion. I'm not going to
JJ now
review
has
the
a
game
British
or talk
accent.
about its impact on gaming after it was released. That information has been covered 1,000 times and isn't anything new.
What happens when I
This is
listen to
something
British
different.
streamers?
This is the pitch, the creation, the design, and development of an absolute classic. Welcome to the making of Super Metroid.
Sailor, are we ready to begin?
For now.
Okay.
Super Metroid is my favourite game. I personally consider it to be perfect. There is absolutely nothing about the game I would change. It is a masterpiece. It's one of the most genre-defining games that has ever been created, inventing the action exploration genre and influencing untold game developers and designers to this very day, earning its spot as a pinnacle of what a game.
I did something to my setup and. Oh, right. Stopped. What did I do last time with this? I remember having this problem. It's gotta set my. Means that I need my Fugi to work off my mic. Need my cat to stop begging me. It's fed less than an hour ago. Yeah, I'm talking. Alright. No, just. I hate it. I hate hearing myself. Disable. Okay, and has to listen. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? There we go. Yeah, he's a lot less. He is so much less reactive when he has to use the mic proper instead of the clean stuff. I really couldn't tell you why that is. Alright, there. Somewhat. Oh well.
Game can be. But
There
how
we
did it
go.
come about? How did it get this way? Join me in my history of Super Metroid as I delve into the making of this classic, from conception to completion. I'm not going to review the game or talk about its impact on gaming after it was released. That information has been covered 1,000 times and isn't anything new. This is something different. This is the pitch, the creation, the design, and development of an absolute classic. Welcome to the making of Super Metroid. In 1990, Yoshio Sakamoto, a producer at Nintendo, was not satisfied with his position. He had recently worked on Balloon Kid, a Game Boy title, and before that, various Famicom Disk System games, whilst also working with Nintendo Research and Development 1, also known as R&D 1, led by legendary Nintendo designer Gunpei Yokoi, on various Game Boy titles, and the one-hit wonder NES title Kid Icarus. His thoughts pined back to one of his crowning works up until then, NES Action Exploration.
So, Yoshio is now the guy who's considered to be in charge of Metroid. He is the most important individual getting new Metroid games made. And the other guy he mentioned, Gunpei Yokoi, he's really kind of burying the lead there. Gunpei Yokoi is the guy that the Nintendo executives found making like electronic toys and said basically, hey, why don't you just do that for the company and we sell them? And then eventually he found his way over into the electronics part of the company. So there's a lot of people you could call Mr. Nintendo, but as for the guy that led them to making video games, Gunpei is like the man. He is the one. And Gunpei also produced the first Metroid. So I don't know if it's exactly right to say that Yoshio's the one that wanted to make Super, because it's not like there hadn't been Metroids 1 and 2 before it. But, yeah, whatever. Continue.
Metroid. By 1990, his eyes were looking forlornly at Nintendo's upcoming flagship Super Famicom, with an eye to make a Metroid sequel. He was not interested in the actual Metroid sequel that was currently being developed for the Game Boy, leaving the rest of R&D 1, headed by artist Hiroji Kiyotaki, to lead that, while he continued designing and pitching.
Yeah, see, this is what I mean. He's like, okay, yes, Yoshio was craving more Metroid, but had no interest in the Metroid being made at the time. Like, what? That doesn't even make sense.
A true console sequel to Metroid. Sakamoto brought together a small group of R&D 1 insiders and programmers from Intelligent Systems, a second-party developer closely affiliated with Nintendo, to start designing the Metroid sequel. At this point, Nintendo had not approved the sequel, and they were extremely hesitant to. The first Metroid, whilst well received critically, had not sold well, and R&D 1 as a whole was known for producing solid titles, but rarely producing big franchises. This was part of a bigger rivalry within Nintendo between Gunpei Yokoi and Miyamoto, who led EAD, as whilst Yokoi could produce excellent one-hit wonders such as Ice Climbers and various Game Boy hits, they weren't known for producing smash franchises.
That is one thing I know for a fact, is that Yoshio headed up Rhythm Fever, WarioWare, Metroid, and what was the fourth? There was another subversive title, and essentially Yoshio has, in some form or manner, always been involved with the less popular side of Nintendo. He's got a quote that's basically like, you could describe my directorial style as whatever Miyamoto is thought to do, I will probably be doing the opposite. And unfortunately, he's just had to live that contrarian lifestyle within Nintendo, which is good, and I think has rounded out Nintendo's market throughout the decades and why they were able to stay being their own independent console instead of getting absorbed into Sony or GameCube. You need WarioWares and Rhythm Heavens and Metroids so that, the Marios stand out more. You don't become the Mario machine. You don't feel played out and like nothing's ever growing or changing.
Such as Super Mario or The Legend of Zelda. Despite this, after constant pitching, 6 months later, Makoto Kano, Sakamoto's boss, was given approval by Gunpei Yokoi to join Sakamoto and officially start development on a Metroid game for the Super Famicom, which would become, in due course, Super Metroid. The design and concept of the game had already been established before the release of Metroid 2. They wanted to see how far they could push the Super Famicom to generate, in Sakamoto's words, a greater power of expression and enhance the game world with high quality graphics, all whilst working with an essentially unchanged concept. Sakamoto wanted to build on the expressiveness on Metroid 2, but achieve greater presence, something closer to reality. The end of Metroid 2 directly influenced the start of Super Metroid, with the final scene in Metroid 2 in which the baby Metroid is born and spared by Samus, leading directly to the events on the space station, in which the space pirate Ridley attacks, stealing the Metroid and taking it to the living planet Zebes, the scene of the first game. Zebes was greatly expanded upon for Super Metroid. The game was designed in such a way that it was a giant labyrinth-themed puzzle in which every single part is connected with another part, with doors that would only open under certain circumstances, and an emphasis being put on designing a perfect labyrinth without any mistakes or dead ends.
I would say they likely succeeded there. I will also note that recently I was looking at some of the.
Yours on streamboo.com. Remove the space. @ClinLXD.
I will note that recently I was doing some research into Sonic CD on my own time, and Sonic CD's levels are like half or a fourth the size of the entire Super Metroid map. Oh my gosh, they're gigantic. Utterly dumbfounding in size. And for the life of me, I don't know why they thought that the Hedgehog who goes fast was suddenly needing to be an exploration game. I've never played CD like that. I've only ever just run from one end of it to the other to complete the level. Because, I wanted to win the levels. You were craving Big Adventure Sonic Metroidvania, almost. That's not true. But what if Sonic was a Metroidvania?
Nothing was in the game for no reason, and everything had a purpose. Designing a next-gen Metroid game wasn't just about the graphics, but also the level design. Sakamoto and the rest of the team were extremely reluctant to make use of any of the storytelling methods that RPGs and adventure games have begun to utilise. They didn't want to explain anything to the player, instead designing the game in such a way that they would be able to play and work things out for themselves. The maps were created so the player couldn't progress or escape without exploration, or they would end up going in a circle and ending up back.
I strongly suspect the reason they did that was because that entire design team had come out of the 8-bit era, and 8-bit games, when they had the ability to give you any kind of direction at all, it would normally be so minimal and cryptic that it would almost always lead you the wrong answer and getting frustrated and wasting your time. So my guess would be they just flat out thought people were better off being implied where to go.
Where they started, but with additional options for progression. The player would have to think about the area, feeling their way through the game. A core objective was that when a player discovered a new item or area, they wanted the player to feel that they had made that discovery independently, without any help from the game, and feel a sense of achievement from that. This created some issues for Sakamoto. There was pressure from inside Nintendo to have some sort of dialogue or storytelling in the game, but Sakamoto was extremely stubborn, believing that the essence of Metroid was always to be found in the gameplay mechanics, not the story. Many different games and movies influenced Super Metroid, but Sakamoto stated that one of the main
That is not something that I discovered in my research. Something that I think reflected in the color era of games more than anything else. Particularly when I think about Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, Zelda games for the Game Boy Color. Those games had a ton of dialogue. And if you do not talk to certain people, you cannot advance in the game. So I can understand why Sakamoto pushed back how he did. I think that the way he developed Super Metroid to have opening narration and then almost exclusively visual storytelling beyond that point was effective and is still an effective method of delivering a gameplay experience. That said, I also believe there is room for and a place for minor character interactions like we see from Castlevania games. I personally think that is the best of both.
major influences on the art direction was H.R. Geiger's Necronomicon and the film Alien. They wanted the game to have a different feel from other Nintendo titles, feeling as if they were projecting a different image from within Nintendo, something a little darker, influenced by science fiction, and hopefully unique.
I got a Matsudo knife, and what followed was
So he said that it was influenced by Geiger. I'm gonna fact check him real. Oh. Layla, what's your favorite Geiger themed video game or and everyone Because, flat out, I didn't see anything Geiger related in my research. Oh. Yeah. Okay, so it is Geiger inspired, but specifically, Metroid and Super Metroid are inspired by the movie Alien. And H.R. Geiger worked on the special effects team for Alien. And then there was the Super Metroid released in '94, and yep, Doom released in '93, which means that at that period of time, Geiger inspired video games were not only hot, they were some of the hottest video games on the planet because Doom changed everything about video games when
Whilst the game was in prototype stage, there was just Sakamoto, another Nintendo designer, and a few programmers from Intelligent Systems. They explored what would be possible and how to make the game more fun to play. What new ideas and systems
We love Intelligent Systems. They made Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, and most of the other cool games from my childhood. Big thumbs up to them.
they can incorporate into the game. Intelligent Systems, also known as INTSYS, provided indispensable technical know-how for the project. Nintendo and INTSYS have a mutually beneficial relationship. INTSYS is a second-party developer. He has always worked extremely closely with Nintendo, specialising in the hardware side of things. The programmers from INTSYS gave the Nintendo developers crucial advice and ideas on what the new Super Famicom was technically capable of, which features they could use and how to utilise them. This was indispensable to the team, as the Super Famicom early on gained a reputation as being a difficult console to develop for. This was due to how the VRAM could be partitioned. Poor partitioning could severely limit the on-screen capabilities, so efficient and clever coding was crucial. The developers from both Nintendo and INTSYS ended up having a lot of fun with the hardware, driven by not wanting to be outdone by the arcade games and competing consoles of the time. After this prototype stage, NCL, aka Nintendo Company Limited, drafted in the rest of the team. The core team eventually formed.
So going down that bloom looks like it's a lot of fun, but getting back up it seems like the world's biggest pain.
By Sakamoto and Kano consists of around 14 people, divided into 5 designers, 7 programmers and 2 musicians, with freelancers being brought into the project at various points when they became necessary. All of the INTSYS staff provided to the project were programmers, but despite this, there was no rivalry between the two company staff, just harmony and cooperation. The teamwork had very beneficial results, with one of the key designers on the Nintendo side
The retro so Intelligent Systems and Retro Studios are two second party developers who have both worked with Nintendo in the past. What I can tell, they have always had that kind of relationship with the first party developers over in, because anytime they're working with them they have to use translators, right? And translators are super slow. But the only individual I have ever seen talked badly about was a Sega dev. That kind of relation.
Tomomi
I am not
Yamane,
aware of any
constantly
horror
consulting with the
stories in
INTSYS team
Nintendo.
about what images could be displayed on the console, influencing his design and increasing his knowledge of the hardware considerably. Much of the team is made up of young trainees and junior developers. This created a contrast within the team, as Sakamoto credits the youth with bringing a certain let's go for it spirit to the project, energising the older developers in what was becoming an increasingly harsh development cycle. By the time development had begun in earnest, Nintendo's lack of faith in the project began.
Translation. They were over budget and behind because they kept pushing and to expand the game and underestimating what they could get.
To show. The budget.
Sorry, overestimating what they could get. There is a pervasive mentality among software developers. They will perform at their best when they plan to get work done. And that's because, most of software development is logic problems. Figuring out, okay, how much can I put on the screen in X amount of time? What can I get done in an 8-hour day? But you don't know what you can get done at the start of that day. So you get up in these loops, and it's fun, but it's also extremely hard to predict. Because you honestly don't know where you're going to wind up when you start. It's not like building a bridge where you're like, okay, I can install 13 bricks in an hour. I need to install 130 bricks, 10 hours of work. You have to build each individual brick, and each individual brick will depend on the bricks around it in a way that you do not know. There are ways for you to know how they will interact, but as the system expands and new features are added, and people want to make changes as they see the project forming, you have to go back and change everything else around them. Software development is complicated.
It was constantly being cut, and the game was threatened with cancellation 3 times due to the fact the cartridge size was growing continuously, as well as the development team missing many of their deadlines. The mood within Nintendo was already wary of the project, so any indications that all may not be going according to schedule was particularly damning. For the entire team, it was their Super Famicom debut. This brought up many problems. One being, the larger scope of the game meant that more sprites and artwork was required, with every developer and designer having some sort of input. This backfired somewhat, as it resulted in a mishmash of styles that were not consistent with one another, causing the lead designer, Tomomi Yamane, to have to go back through and retouch almost everything that had been submitted in order to unify the game's presentation. The musical composition for the game, as well as every sound effect, was created by 2 musicians, Manako Hamano and Kenji Yamamoto. They built upon the original Metroid.
We stand Kenji Yamamoto in this house. That man is an international treasure. Protect him at all costs.
Themes created by Hirokazu Tanaka, expanding upon them and making many new themes as well. They used acoustic instruments and synthesizers to experiment and compose the score before converting them into digital properties that could be played by the Super Nintendo. The soundtrack became a mix of brooding, dark atmospheric music, fast action style pieces, and triumphant overtures, and pushed the Super Nintendo sound chip to its absolute limit, delivering an orchestral masterpiece. Despite this, the pair was not convinced of many of the sound effects they had created in the game, feeling them a little flat, particularly the screams of Samus and the aliens when they died. To remedy this, Manako Himano stood in front of a microphone and began whimpering and letting out cries, with the results creating a far more unsettling and fitting sound for the game. There are, however, conflicting reports about the exact usage of her voice, with some places reporting that it was directly used, and others saying that it was too sexual so it wasn't used. Regardless, either way, it was a direct influence on the final product, whether or not it was directly replicated. The team was going to great lengths to achieve a balance. The items, locations, puzzles, bosses, enemies, and Samus's various acquired abilities all had to work in conjunction with one another, and creating the balance was a constant battle. It meant they often had to experiment and then build and rebuild until they got the balance right, which in turn led to the development time extending and deadlines being missed. They were adamant not to create an on-rails experience, so balancing the progression and exploration was key in creating the game they wanted to make. Gunpei Yokoi was the general project manager of Super Metroid by default, as he was the head of R&D1. However, he took a hands-off approach to the development of the game, leaving it in the hands of producer Sakamoto and his boss, Makoto Kano. Yokoi often visited the team with fresh ideas, but became increasingly frustrated with the project as it went on. With deadlines and objectives being missed, Kano was even given a final warning concerning his position within the company at some point. This led to a frenzied final stage of development, in when the Higashiyama building, the headquarters of NCL at the time, became almost a sort of boarding house. During the last 6 months of development, many of the staff ended up working extreme overtime, with a nap room being designated when the staff felt they didn't have time to go home. Sakamoto recalled there always being at least 10 members of staff working throughout the night, with the place ending up resembling a zoo. Sakamoto said that the nap room was not a clean place, and all the other workers at Nintendo would often give them funny looks as they were all overworked and unclean during the final stages of development. Gunpei Yokoi was angry about the staff pushing themselves to such extreme lengths. However, the developers' passion for the project was unbridled, as many felt a great sense of ownership and mission for the project.
Well, yeah, of course they felt ownership. It's art. Video games are art. Gunpei can't threaten their manager with one hand and then be upset. Okay. First of all, rest in peace before I say anything. But you're not both threaten their boss's job and then be upset that they're pushing themselves to the limit. Because that is what you wanted them to do. That is what they unfortunately were signed up for and you approved. There are all kinds of men. It's very rare and
Project, wanting to create something truly fantastic. In 1994, after years of principal development, since the original idea of the game back in 1990, the game was finally ready to test. All of the staff members spent 1 month constantly playing through the entire game, correcting any bugs found, adjusting the difficulty, and perfecting the course of a playthrough. This was followed by an additional month of testing by freelancers, brought in to give a fresh pair of eyes to the project. These people had no involvement with the project whatsoever, so could offer a unique perspective compared to the people that become intimately involved with the game over the years, being able to give their true opinions, as they wouldn't feel any sort of pride over the project. They were asked to test the game and find bugs, as well as give their opinions on the difficulty, the areas, the graphics, the controls, and more. This was tremendously useful to the developers, allowing them to perfect the game, and then finally, in the spring of 1994, Super Metroid hit Japanese shelves. Within Nintendo, the game surpassed expectations. Every one of the team members was redeemed, and they managed to prove themselves. Gunpei Yokoi held the game in such high regard that he became addicted to playing it, and after this, whenever anyone brought him a pitch for a game he didn't think was good, he asked them to go away and play Super Metroid before coming back to him, holding it up as the perfect example of a game. This was surprising to many within Nintendo, as Yokoi was notorious for not dishing out praise, so his recommendation really meant a lot. The reception around the world was equally impressive, with many outlets giving the game a near perfect scores, and it being received as one of the best games not only to hit the Super Nintendo and Super Famicom, but any console ever. Despite this universal acclaim, sales figures were average and did not perform as well as Nintendo might have hoped given the scores. It was competing against Donkey Kong Country, as well as the upcoming Sega Saturn, and it was very late into the console's lifespan, when many gamers' attention had somewhat drifted from 16-bit consoles, as the new batch of 32-bit consoles was fast approaching.
he's missing a very important point here, and maybe he'll mention it as soon as I do. Who on earth would expect Nintendo to be able to market and sell a gritty intergalactic horror adventure game? Like, yeah, they had gold on their hands, but I refuse to believe that they had any earthly idea how to convince people to come play it or try it. Like, like the developers went out of their way to make solid gold. It's too bad that their marketing department had no idea what to do with that gold. They know how to, promote Mr. Mario and Donkey Kong, Yoshi. That's what they're designed to advertise, put out. I remember the WarioWare advertisements from when I was a child, they were bad for the most part. Putting a GBA game on a television screen is not a good idea. Putting multiple stills out at the same time is a decent. Showing cutscenes from inside the game is a good idea. Listening to the developers talk about the game they made would be a good idea. But I don't think they did any of those things back then.
Over the years, Super Metroid has gradually managed to build up its reputation, and is now held as a true Nintendo classic, receiving successful sequels on the GameCube and cementing Samus as a Nintendo heavyweight. It's clear that everyone involved with the project was passionate about the game, and that truly shows.
That's absolutely artistic license. Metroid games have never sold well. Likely will continue to sell well. The sequel on the GameCube is not a sequel in any. That's like saying that Thousand Year Door is a sequel, or Paper Mario was a sequel to Super Mario Brothers. No, it is not. It is a game featuring similar elements and similar characters, and the same characters, but it is an entirely different gaming experience, and I would not consider it a sequel. Metroid Prime is its own thing. However, we did eventually get Metroid Fusion on the Game Boy Advance, and that is a sequel. And it's a good game.
There isn't one area of the game which was done lazily. Everything from the level design, the sprites, the music, and the gameplay is the absolute pinnacle of a 2D game, and what the Super Nintendo was capable of. It shows that a game doesn't need to sell particularly well to be a classic, and Super Metroid will almost definitely stand the test of time. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It'd be great to see everyone's story of when they first played Super Metroid in the comments below, and what you felt when you played it, and what you think of it today. If you have any suggestions for future videos, do let me know, and I really hope you subscribe, like and share. Goodbye!
Super Metroid is a good video game that is unfortunately restricted to people with a desire to complete, I suppose. I guess I would really say there are two kinds of video games in this world. There are games that people are expected to play to completion, and there are games that people are expected to play to feel something, to enjoy themselves, to relax. Or the gameplay loop is the same way each time, consumed or played as many times as you want. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, that's probably
Hope you enjoyed the documentary, JJ.
honestly, having watched it, I was scared because the last time you and I did this, there were a bunch of things that weren't in the video that we did. But honestly, I think we did a pretty good job. The only thing he brought up that kind of caught me from left field was them sleeping in
Good.
awful conditions towards the end of the project. But like, I can only say Nintendo pushed these guys to the absolute limit, and everybody hated themselves by the end so many times. Because we did that with the Mario 64 video. Talked about it with Pokemon. Like, creating video games at that point in time, and even now to an extent, if you want to put out art on a deadline, you have to forfeit. At least this is my opinion. You have to forfeit some part of the rest of your life to accomplish. Just have to, because the amount of time that it takes to achieve perfection cannot be constrained to a 9 to 5 schedule. Just can't. it is easier to deal with that now because we have such consistent and technology is not rapidly accelerating and growing like it used to be. You can develop a game for 5 or 6 years and then release it now. Back then, that would have been completely unthinkable. But yeah, enjoyed it. It was a good presentation. I noticed that he did not take his own footage, which I think is a missed opportunity, particularly when you can just very easily. It's you literally just need an NSO membership, which I don't know. Maybe it's more complex than I'm proposing. Actually, you know what? Let me double check while we're here. Button, button. Yeah, and it just works. Where is it? Is the entire library available? I recall an online membership is $60 for a year or something. First game added. First one was there. It is. It was number 4. But yeah, it's something we can do now. Is Miss Sarah. Can just do this. He was not able to. I'm feeling the all in all, something I don't understand the hype that surrounds Super Metroid. Oh, I can't jump on those guys? Are you kidding me? Be the easiest thing in the world. However, I believe that Metroid in general, in a couple of ways, is a there's only so much it can ever be, so to speak. And I think that's the biggest reason we got Metroid Prime. Because, I mean, once you reach the peak here, that I have played indie games based on Super Metroid, and they are just Super Metroid, but again, this is the formula. It is a solved phenomenon. And because of how strict its setting is, it cannot pull a Super Mario Wonder or a Mario Galaxy and completely revolutionize how it's developed and formed. That's not a thing it can do. It's too stringent. It's too solid. So, anyway, it's unfortunate that he brought up how Yokoi would tell people to play Super Metroid, figure out what they need to do next, because I believe he left the company the year after this game released. And that's kind of fun. Alright. Sayla, is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up here? Been out of. Oh. No. Best. Okay, yeah. Not. Alright. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. Hope you all learned something. Again, this is the DNA of the Soul podcast. Out on YouTube. Buy our merch that we definitely have. I'm still terrible at outros.